Al tavolo con noi ci sono il regista di Wars Glory, Glawogger, il direttore della fotografia Wolfgang Thaler e ci deve aggiungere anche il produttore Erich Lachmann. Grazie. I try to speak in English. Of course, all questions are welcomed. But I would like to begin with the first question to Mr. Glawogger. In this press book, which is particularly well done and which I recommend you all to read, Michael says that his films are non-judgmental, that he doesn't want to make judgments in his movies. Anyway, in the movie we have just seen, I think there is a clear structure and a clear progress between the three parts. The first, set in Thailand, is almost light, almost. The second is darker. The third one in Mexico is very, very dark, and it deals directly with death. I don't know if this is judgmental, but I think there is maybe a moral stance, a moral vision in these progressions towards darkness. I would like to ask to Michael what he thinks about this and how he did conceive this progression towards darkness in his movie.
Is it? Is it a progression towards darkness? I think in one way it is, and in another way it also, in Mexico it shows that the women who are there are very, in a way, emotionally and also intellectually very sophisticated. I mean, they have this closeness to what they call the holy death, which like attracts a vision of darkness. But on the other hand, I think they perceive it the most clearly who they are and what they do, so that it's also a strength there. I mean, when I see the Mexican part, it always gives me confidence in a way, because if the women in these surroundings can like live this life and think these thoughts, that's a sign of beauty and strength from me. So, as you said, without preconceptions, I always try in my films not to pity anybody, or because I mean, pity is sort of the worst thing a filmmaker could have towards his protagonists. And if I see the Mexican part, it's not only a thing of darkness, it's also a thing of beauty and strength.
Thank you, Michael. In this Mexican part, you also show what happens behind the door of the brothel, and this is a choice that maybe may surprise the viewer, who after the first two parts thinks he will never see what happens behind the door.
It's a choice I made. I mean, I think films that have a certain theme should not beat around the bush. I always intended to have such a scene, but it's not easy to get a scene like that in a meaningful way. I mean, in Thailand, it was a question of censorship of government, that this could never happen. With the women, maybe it would have been possible to do it. In Bangladesh, I would never do it, because that's I would overstep a cultural border that's not to be overstepped. And in Mexico, I could do it, so I did it. And I was not sure if I would ever put this in the movie, but when I wasn't even present filming it, that was actually done by my cameraman, and it was done by Brenda, the prostitute, who is in a way a very, you wouldn't say gifted actress, but she did what she always did, and that's what works best in documentary, when you let people do what they always do. They will do it right, and they will do it very authentic. And actually this scene showed a lot to me, because in a way, when the door is closed, many things turn around, like who has the say and what are the rules, and so it's sort of, I mean, if you're male, this might turn into a depressing scene for you, because you think that is it, that's what I get for my money, 20 minutes? That can't be true. In another sense, it really shows that Brenda is pretty bossy with him, and there is some power in her way that she handles the whole thing. So I'm actually happy that I did this, because it might be cinematographically and in terms of progression of a film, it might be very elegant to leave it out. But I rather be daring than elegant in that sense, because to leave out the essence of what this all is about, it wouldn't be a very good thing. It's like also, I mean, even when I see like Hollywood films that deal with pornography and then I don't see pornography, I'm sort of disappointed. I mean, don't beat around the bush with what this all is about. And it's about that. The whole thing, the whole glamour, the whole up and down and makeup and hairdo is all about that 20 minutes. That's what it's all about, and that's what you get for your money. And so it would be a sign of weakness to not show it, I think.
Thank you. I would like to ask you something about the use of music in this movie and in your documentaries. I think that a certain school of documentary would consider a crime to a presumed purity of the image, the use of music. You cannot put music in documentary because in this way you alter the purity of the image. In your documentaries, like in Working Man Death, you commissioned the score to a very talented musician, John Zorn. In this movie, you use music from P.G. Harvey to Coco Rosie to many others. We are not here to put the label documentary, docufiction on your movie, on the movies, but what do you think about this relation between documentary image and the use of music?
For one thing, it would be like the death of me as an artist if I would think of the purists in documentary cinema. I think about my issues, and I think about my film, and I think about a mood this film has to have. And I mean, prostitutes love to hear music, and I like to hear music. So what I actually try to do is make like a musical dialogue between me and them. There is their music in this film, and there is my music in this film. And if you want it to put it like that, it's like a commentary thing. This music is used as a playful commentary between me and them. And if anybody says documentary film is not supposed to have music, so what?
Right. Yes, of course.
Thank you. How you manage to find the locations? I mean, they are not big cities, Bangkok, but the other ones in Bangladesh and Mexico could have been, I don't know, India and Guatemala. So how you manage to, you made a tour around looking for a zone and then decided, or whatever, someone told you this is interesting and so on?
Actually, it goes back to the other two films that I made in that sort of system of filmmaking, to Mega Cities and Working Man's Death. And I always have what I do in each country is I also find a photographer. I mean, somebody who works with me and on my side, and who doesn't just do pictures of the film, but does like a project going along with the film. And so I knew a very, very good photographer from Bangladesh who told me about these kind of brothel ghettos in Bangladesh, but he said, be aware, you will never be able to make a picture there or even film there. And then we came there, and actually a group of Muslim fundamentalists tried to evacuate one of these ghettos with more than 600 women, and it was a big uproar and street fighting, and the police clashed, and so at that moment we could make pictures there. and they were published in a local newspaper, and from then on we slowly like gained the trust of the women, because they knew we were like doing something that was on their side. It still took 3 more years to actually be able to film there. 3 more years. It was really a long go. And after I had shot this Bangladeshi part, I knew that the system of my film should be like a triptych, should consist of like 3 different religions. So after I had the middle part, I was like looking for the Buddhist part on the left side and for the Catholic part on the right side. So then I was limited to places, and you normally you go with the word of mouth. You hear about places. I heard about the La Zona de la Tolerancia, so I drove there. And again, the same story there. You'll never be able to film here. And in Thailand, maybe even worse. I mean, then 100 fish tank places in Bangkok, but only one place would allow us to do that, and only through the dedicated work of my line producer in connection with one Thai company who would stick out their head and convince like the government to let this pass, I could do it. But this is all like a very long process.
Altre domande da parte, any other question from the audience? Grazie.
I'm just curious, how come you chose these 3 countries and not any European country? Did you think about that, or how did you decide?
I did think about that, and I researched it a lot, especially in my hometown. Also in Naples, I've really traveled a lot. I dropped it for the reasons I just said. And maybe there is another reason, that for my kind of filmmaking, it's sort of key that I have a location that also tells a story. I want to visualize, or my cameraman with me tries to do that, places that from the beginning are not only the people which comes afterwards, but when you look at them, they show something. Like Thailand has this glass wall between men and women, a lighting situation that tells a story. The women who are very well lit, the men who really sit in the dark, and the glass that becomes a reflecting mirror by that kind of lighting. Already that tells a story, and what the people inside there say like comes on top of that kind of storytelling location. The same in Bangladesh. It was sort of this labyrinth that we had to wander through, where we had to catch things, where something surprising would come around each corner. And in the 3rd location, you would have like cars cruising and like men in motion choosing women who are not in motion. All of that is a story in itself. Most of the prostitution that is in European surroundings these days is either so old-fashioned that it becomes extremely exotic, or it is like wandered off to the internet. And like escort service or the internet is a space that in a cinematographic sense leaves me completely lonely. I don't know what to film. I'm not very fond of filming computer screens. And there is only like girls picking up the phone, and the next step is a hotel room. So this would have been a U-porn sex movie if I do that. And that's also a reason. I need spaces, I need to think in cinematographic terms where something shows just by the way the place is.
I think maybe it's interesting to hear something from Wolfgang and from Erich about the visual style of the movie, about your work, for example. You have to press.
For me, this movie was very exciting and a big challenge, because I had to go over the limit in the meaning of exposure. It means how to expose, how to bring on the film really dark places. When you enter such places, there's a certain mood, a certain light, and if you illuminate all these places, all the mood and the business stops immediately there. So this was one of my biggest challenge to do this. At the end, when Erich saw the rushes from Mexico, he called me and said, I didn't know that it's possible to expose, to bring darkness to the film. We had in Mexico, this was the most difficult places for me to shoot ever. It took 3 electricians to illuminate the place so there is something on the film. We decided to do it on film because the aesthetic way how the film catch all this, I prefer very much. Nowadays, if you would use the very new cameras with high sensitivity, you never would have the same mood as we could get on film. So it would look completely different. It would look clean and not this, to catch dirty on the film because you can't smell. You have no idea about the temperatures. So, when Michael sent me photos when he was in Recce, it looked everything very bright and common and it's no problem to go there and shoot. But when I asked, how did you do this? I had 12,000 ASA, it means it's very high sensitivity camera. And when I arrived there, I saw there's nothing on film if I would do it the same way.
Thank you. Erich would like to add something about the production history of the movie.
This was the most long-term movie we have ever shot together, Michael Glawogger and the Lotus Film Company. We had more than 3 years just for developing and researching the story. And then for shooting, we had also all over 3 years for starting the shooting and ended then in the zero print. In the meantime, we had also a very long part of financing in that time when we were researching, so it was not possible to finance such kind of movie. We make really just the content, if the content is hoary of horse glory. Because everybody, every TV station where we want to get money from there was always saying, yeah, what is the European thing in that? What is about the kids and so on? And so in that way, we had really lost a lot of time to finance this movie, mostly about, we tried to finance it with TV stations. And after then, we were really exhausted because we didn't get really most of the money there. We go back to Austria, and this was a great thing because in that time was the Austrian television really in a mood that they say, okay, let's spend the money there and do it. And they spend a lot of money there, and the Austrian Film Institute spent a lot of money there because the whole budget was a little bit below than 2 million euros. And this is quite a lot of money for a documentary movie. Pardon? A little bit below them. But more than 2 million said to 1.5. And I think this was also the third part of his trilogies, Megacity, Workman's Death, and now Horse Glory. And this was also a way to make a special kind of documentaries And I'm feeling that that time is now over. Now it's changing, generally changing in that way, that that kind of movies, the 3 movies, Mega City, Horse Glory, and Working Man's Death and Horse Glory, these are 3 movies and assigning an end.
Ci sono ancora domande da parte vostra? C'è ancora tempo per una domanda? Grazie. C'era la signora prima. No, poi...
Parlo in italiano. Sono messicana e sono contenta che il direttore abbia messo questo pezzo di realtà. Questo pezzo di realtà difficile da una parte del Messico che è sulla frontiera tra gli Stati Uniti e quello che mi ha lasciato sorpresa non è stato che le prostitute del Messico si lasciavano prendere praticamente mostrando tutto, se no anche i ragazzi il ragazzo più che altro che si è fatto vedere con questo rapporto sessuale. Questa è stata una scelta sua o praticamente è andata così?
My choice, because that will not work. I mean, I have to ask Brenda, would you do this? And when she says yes, then I say you pick the customer. Because otherwise, that's like also a rule, like in documentary filmmaking, when you don't do straight interviews, but you want to, like 2 people have some kind of communication, then you ask one of them and you say, who's your best friend? And otherwise, those 2 women would not have anything to say to each other. Like when the 2 young girls are sitting on the bed and they are talking about laughing and crying and stuff, this would never happen if I don't make like a choice, an emotional choice that between them. I have to know those people. And also with that kind of thing, Brenda has to choose a customer that she sort of likes in a way, or where she can communicate. So I cannot do that. Otherwise, it would be a very aggressive act. I push in a customer into her room where she would like step back. And it actually a strange thing happened because like a couple of weeks ago, I went to all the places back and showed the girls the movie, which I had promised. And when I came to La Zona, Brenda and this boy were a couple because they loved their filming experience, and now they're like together since then. But she's still working, so.
I was just asking if you use the interpret. Of course, you can speak Bangladeshi or so the interpreter.
Why, of course, I could know Bangladeshi.
Yeah, but I mean the interpreter, the choice of the interpreter is difficult in this case.
It's actually crucial. If you don't have an interpreter that sort of he has to fulfill 2 qualifications. One is to understand where I want to go, and the other one is to make connections with the girls. I mean, that is sort of the hardest part, and even if that is done, the way to like tell me what they are saying during all of the day. It's not like I say a sentence, he says a sentence, a girl says a sentence, then you go crazy and you don't get anything from them. It has to be like a flow between my interpreter and the girls, and then he tells me what he experienced during the day, and the puzzle like puts itself together throughout many weeks and months.
So it's very difficult to find the right guy.
It's not that difficult. It's sort of a question of patience. Like everything in documentary film is a question of patience.
Erich would like to add something.
Sorry, I have before them I have forgotten a special note also for the financing the movie. It was not only the ORF, the Austrian television station, who was involved in the project. We had also, after them, we had really found a a possibility to give the project a structure. Then was also, and the second television station that was involved was the ZDF. And so we had really on a funny way, two public stations, broadcast stations in the movie, who makes well, it's possible to make for public broadcast stations that kind of movie about prostitution, and not the private TV stations. And then that way it's also, this was, I think, the last time that it was possible to make that kind of movies with that amount of television station on that content. Thank you.
I would, okay.
As we were speaking of the translation problem, with this kind of really close documentary, it's also hard for the cinematographer to know what's going on, what they're talking about, without knowing the language. So there must be a lot of talking about the style, how you did the way to film. And yeah, I'm curious about what the two of you spoke in that.
We know each other for a while, and we don't speak a lot. Sometimes I take this and a pen, and I draw little figures, and he says, yeah, I'll do it. It takes a while till you get close in that sense, but Wolfgang has a very strong gut feeling towards people, and I'm really amazed most of the time when I see the rushes that he doesn't understand the world of Bangla, but in the right moment he moves away and comes back with the camera. So he's really a blessing for my work. Thank you.
Just one last question to Michael. You say that in these movies there are some moments that you call a real documentary, like the dogs humping. But just a curiosity, moments like the Bangla girl shouting at the beginning, which seems like a sort of neorealistic scene, which shouts with a sort of irony, with a sort of comic.
Those women are fighting all day. They shout at each other, they hit each other, they torture each other. So that is so easy. I mean, it happens every other hour, and it happens when it happens. This is also, there is some kind of emotional things in life that you cannot stage. You can say, go in this room and fuck, you can do that. But you cannot to a non-actor say, get out of your way and shout. It won't work, it will be clumsy, it will be nothing. If those women wouldn't be angry, it wouldn't work. And when they are angry, they don't care about you, because they are angry at their next door neighbor. They are angry because they took a customer away from them. And then they shout, and that's the purest documentary you can get.
Thank you. Penso che possiamo finire qua, anche perché c'è subito dopo un'altra conferenza. We would like to thank Michael Glawogger, Wolfgang Tharer, and Erich Lachner for being there and for the movie. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.